After my wife's funeral, I returned home to find my daughter standing at my front door with her husband's family. My daughter declared, "You need to leave this house by noon. Mom left this house to me." Heartbroken, I decided to pack my belongings and leave the house. But later, 47 videos that my late wife had secretly recorded helped me turn the tables and expose the conspiracy of those evil people. I'm grateful you're here. Before we continue, drop justice in the comments if you believe the truth always finds a way. It helps me know you're following along. Quick note, this story includes fictional elements crafted for entertainment and awareness. Any resemblance to real people or places is coincidental, but the message about elder abuse and the courage to seek truth might resonate with you. I never thought I'd be homeless at 61. The morning of June 7th started like every morning since Susan died. I woke alone in our bed, reached for her out of habit, and found cold sheets. 2 months. 2 months since the heart attack took her, and I still wasn't used to the silence. The doorbell rang at 8:30. When I opened the door, Amanda stood on the porch. Behind her, Trevor Hutchinson, his father Kenneth, and his mother Donna. My daughter hadn't visited since the funeral, though she lived 20 minutes away. "Dad," Amanda said, her voice flat. "We need to talk." They didn't sit. Kenneth Hutchinson walked through my living room like he owned it, running his hand along the mantel where Susan's ashes sat in a simple urn. "Thomas," Kenneth said, turning to face me. At 64, he was broad and imposing, a real estate mogul who'd made millions in Denver. "We're keeping this simple. This house now belongs to my family. You have until noon to pack and leave." I stared at him. "What are you talking about? The house is mine now, Dad." Amanda finally met my eyes. What I saw there made my chest tighten: guilt, fear, resignation. "Mom left it to me in her will. I'm sorry, but you need to find somewhere else to live." "That's not possible." My hands shook. "Your mother and I bought this house together. Susan left a will." Kenneth pulled a folded document from his jacket. "Signed and notarized. Everything goes to Amanda. You have no legal right to be here." I took the paper. Susan's signature at the bottom, a notary stamp, legal language I couldn't process. But something was wrong. Susan would have told me. We'd talked about wills after her diagnosis, but she'd said we didn't need to rush. The heart attack came too fast. "I need to call a lawyer," I said. "Go ahead." Kenneth checked his Rolex. "But everything's in order, and you still have to be out by noon. 3.5 hours. Amanda." I ignored Kenneth, focused on my daughter. "Please. This is your mother's house. You grew up here." "I know." Her voice cracked. For a second, I thought she might back down. Then Trevor put his hand on her shoulder, and whatever light I'd seen in her eyes went out. "I'm sorry, Dad, but it's done." I spent 2 hours in a fog. Threw clothes into a suitcase, grabbed medication, packed Susan's urn with shaking hands. Everything else, furniture, photos, our life, I left behind. At 11:45, I stood on the porch with 2 suitcases and a box containing my wife's ashes. Martin Cooper found me there. My neighbor for 20 years took one look and said, "Jesus, Tom, what happened?" I couldn't answer. "Come on." Martin picked up a suitcase. "You're staying with us." Martin's guest room was small but clean. That evening, I finally read the will Kenneth had given me. The language was clear: Amanda Gardner Hutchinson, sole beneficiary. The house saving Susan's car, everything went to our daughter. But something nagged at me. Something about the house itself. We'd bought this house in 1995, right after Christopher was born. Susan had inherited money from her grandmother, $20,000 for the down payment. Susan had handled all the paperwork herself. What name had she used? I called Martin. "I need to get into my house. There are documents I need. Tom, they'll call the cops. They're at dinner in Cherry Creek. I saw it on Facebook. Please, Martin, I need the original deed. 20 minutes later, we parked down the street. The windows were dark. Martin kept the engine running while I used my key at the back door. The house felt wrong. In one day, they'd started erasing us. Susan's herb garden gone, family photos removed. I went straight to Susan's office and pulled open the filing cabinet. Found the folder marked House 1995. Inside was the original deed. Deed of trust, recorded October 15th, 1995. Owner Susan Waverly. Not Susan Gardner. Susan Waverly, her maiden name, and no mention of me at all. My phone buzzed. Martin, car and driveway. Get out. I shoved the deed in my jacket and ran. Back at Martin's, I stared at the document. If Susan had put the house in her name alone, then legally it had been hers to leave to anyone. The will was real. Amanda owned the house now. But why had Susan done it, and why hadn't she told me? My phone rang at midnight. Christopher. Dad. My son's voice was tight. I just talked to Amanda. She said you're not at the house anymore. What's going on? I told him everything. The eviction, the will, the deed. Christopher was silent for a long moment. Dad, he finally said, do you remember Mom talking about a storage unit? What? Last time I visited, Mom mentioned she'd rented one in Lakewood. She was putting things there for safekeeping. She made me promise not to tell anyone, not even you. She said it was important. My hand tightened on the phone. Did she say what was in it? No, but she gave me a key. She said if anything happened to her, I should make sure you got it. Christopher. I'm coming home tomorrow, Dad. First thing. And we're going to that storage unit. After he hung up, I sat in the dark and thought about my wife. Susan had known she was sick. Her heart had been failing for months. She'd had time to plan to prepare. She'd rented a storage unit and hidden things there. Things she hadn't wanted anyone to find until after she was gone. I looked at the deed again, at Susan's maiden name written in careful legal script. She'd bought this house in her name alone 30 years ago. She'd kept secrets. She'd made plans. And suddenly, for the first time since Amanda stood on my porch and told me I didn't belong in my own home, I felt something other than grief. But Susan had left something else. Something they didn't know about. Hidden in the files I'd been afraid to open. The files in that storage unit. I felt hope. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Amanda's face, the guilt, the fear, the resignation. That wasn't the daughter Susan and I had raised. Something had happened to her. Something that started 6 years ago when she married Trevor Hutchinson. I should have seen it coming. Susan did. Spring of 2018. Amanda brought Trevor home for the first time. She was 29, working as an accountant, and they'd been dating 8 months. We met at a restaurant in Cherry Creek, the kind where menus don't list prices. Trevor was polished, confident. He talked about his sales position, his family's real estate empire, his expansion plans. He paid with a black credit card and called Amanda babe in a way that made her blush. Susan smiled through dinner, but in the car she turned to me and said, I don't like him. He seems successful. Amanda's happy. No, she's performing. Did you see how she checked with him before answering questions, like she needed permission to have opinions? You're being dramatic. Susan looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. I met Kenneth Hutchinson at a library fundraiser once. He's the kind of man who thinks money gives him the right to own people. You're worrying too much. Susan was never wrong about people. The engagement happened fast, 3 months later. The wedding was enormous, paid for entirely by the Hutchinsons. Kenneth gave a toast about how Amanda was now part of their family, how the Hutchinsons took care of their own. Amanda moved into a house Kenneth owned, and slowly, over 2 years, our daughter disappeared. At first, small things. Amanda stopped calling as often. Family dinners became awkward. She'd check her phone constantly, and Trevor would interrupt her stories to correct details. Susan noticed everything. "He's isolating her," she told me after one tense Thanksgiving. "Did you see how he spoke to her like she was a child?" Maybe we're being too sensitive. Thomas, our daughter, is changing. She used to be confident. Now she barely speaks unless Trevor approves, and Kenneth watches her like she's an investment. I didn't listen. I told myself marriages had adjustments, that Amanda was happy that Susan was overprotective. By 2022, Amanda rarely visited. When she did, she was thin and tired. She wore expensive clothes that didn't suit her and talked about investments I knew she didn't care about. Susan would try to get her alone, but Trevor always stayed close. The last time Amanda visited, February 2024, 2 months before Susan died. My wife tried one more time. "Amanda, honey," Susan said in the kitchen. "Are you okay? You seem stressed." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. For a moment, I thought she'd break. Then her phone rang. Trevor's name. She answered immediately, voice bright and false. "Hey, babe. Yeah, I'm almost done. I'll be home in 20 minutes. After she left, Susan sat at the table and cried. "We're losing her. We're losing our daughter, and I don't know how to stop it." 3 weeks later, Susan collapsed in the garden. Christopher and I made it to the hospital, but Amanda didn't arrive until the next morning. She came alone, no Trevor, no in-laws, and looked devastated. Susan woke briefly that afternoon. Her heart was failing, but she'd rallied. Hours, maybe days. She used that time to talk to Christopher about his students, to make me promise I'd keep her garden alive. Then she asked to speak to Amanda alone. I don't know what they said. I waited in the hallway, watching through the window, as Susan held Amanda's hand and spoke urgently. When Amanda came out 20 minutes later, her face was blotchy, hands shaking. "What did she say?" I asked. Amanda shook her head. "She loves us. She said she loves us so much." That night, Susan pulled me close. We were alone. "Thomas," she whispered, "listen to me. I don't have much time. Don't say that. Protect our children." Her fingers dug into my arm. "Promise me. Whatever happens, protect Christopher and Amanda, especially Amanda." "I will. I promise." "There are things," she coughed, "things I can't explain now. But I've made arrangements, important documents. If anything happens to me, look for—" A nurse rushed in. Susan's heart monitor beeped frantically. They pushed me out. I stood helpless while they tried to save her. She died at 3:47 a.m. on April 19th. The funeral was a blur. Kenneth made a show of comforting me, talking about how family takes care of family. I was too numb to wonder what he meant. Now, sitting in Martin's guest room at 1 a.m, those words took on new meaning. Kenneth had been planning even then, and Susan had known. That's why she'd been so urgent in the hospital. Important documents. The storage unit. The next morning, someone knocked on my door. "Dad." "Christopher." I opened the door and nearly broke down. My son looked like Susan, same dark hair, same thoughtful eyes. He pulled me into a hug I desperately needed. "Tell me everything," he said over coffee. I told him. The eviction, Kenneth's threats, the will, the deed in Susan's maiden name. Amanda's guilt and fear, how she'd changed over 6 years, Susan's warnings I'd ignored. Christopher listened without interrupting. When I finished, his jaw was tight. I should have come home more. I should have seen what was happening to Amanda. We both should have. But Mom saw it. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through old messages. Look at this. From January. He showed me a text from Susan Christopher. Honey, I need you to do something for me. I'm putting some important things in a storage unit just in case. I'm going to give you a key. Don't tell your father yet. Don't tell Amanda. If something happens to me, make sure Thomas gets it. Promise me. Christopher's response. Mom, you're scaring me. What's going on, Susan? I'm just being careful. I love you, sweetheart. Take care of your dad and your sister. She knew, Christopher whispered. 2 months before she died, she knew something was wrong. What's in the storage unit? I don't know, but she made me promise to keep it secret. She said it would protect us. He looked at me with Susan's eyes. Dad, what did Mom tell you before she died? I repeated Susan's last words. Protect our children. Important documents. Christopher stood abruptly. We need to go to that storage unit now. He pulled a small key from his wallet. She gave me this 3 days before she died. I looked at the key, then at my son's face. He had Susan's determination. Her fire. The same fire that had made her put the house in her maiden name, rent a storage unit in secret, and spend her last moments trying to protect us. Christopher met my eyes. What's in the storage unit, Dad? I didn't have an answer, but I knew Susan had left us something powerful, something Kenneth didn't know about, something that could change everything. Let's find out, I said. The storage facility was on the west side of Lakewood, tucked between a tire shop and a Mexican restaurant. Christopher pulled into the parking lot at 9 in the morning, and we sat in his car for a moment staring at the rows of orange metal units. Unit 247, Christopher said. Mom paid for a year in advance. Cash. Cash. Susan had been that careful. We found the unit on the second floor. Christopher's hands shook as he fitted the key into the padlock. The lock clicked open, and he pulled up the rolling door. Inside was a small space, maybe 10 by 10 feet. Just 3 things: a filing cabinet, a cardboard box labeled legal documents, and another box labeled Mom's craft supplies. Susan didn't do crafts. I opened the filing cabinet first. The top drawer was organized with Susan's meticulous precision. The first folder, House Original Deed, Deed of Trust, October 15th, 1995. Owner, Susan Waverly. Not Gardner, just Susan. The next folder was marked, Will and Trust, 2024. I pulled out the documents. The first was a will dated March 1st, 2024, 6 weeks before Susan died. It was notarized official and completely different from the will Kenneth had shown me. This will left everything to me. The house, the savings, Susan's car. Amanda and Christopher were provided for, but the primary beneficiary was me, Thomas Gardner. Dad. Christopher was holding another document. Look at this. It was a trust agreement. Irrevocable trust established March 1st, 2024. Grantor, Susan Waverly Gardner. Trustee, Howard Klein, Esquire. Beneficiary, Thomas Gardner. I scanned the legal language. Susan had placed the house into an irrevocable trust with Howard Klein, a lawyer I'd never heard of, as trustee. Upon Susan's death, the house would be protected for my use for the remainder of my life. Amanda and Christopher would inherit after I passed, but they could not force a sale or remove me. It was airtight, legal, dated 6 weeks before her death. Who the hell is Howard Klein? I asked. Christopher was already searching. Law office in downtown Denver, estate planning specialist. He looked up. Dad, if this trust is real, then Kenneth's will is either fake or invalid. Why wouldn't Susan tell me? Christopher pulled out another paper. Maybe she was scared. It was a letter, handwritten in Susan's careful script. My dearest Thomas, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and I pray you found this before it was too late. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you everything. There wasn't time, and I was afraid. Kenneth Hutchinson is dangerous. He's drowning in debt, his empire is collapsing, and he needs money desperately. Our house is worth nearly $1 million now. He wants it. Amanda is trapped. I tried to reach her, but Kenneth and Trevor have isolated her completely. She's terrified. Whatever you think of what she's done, remember she's being controlled. She's still our daughter. I've made arrangements. The house is protected in an irrevocable trust through Howard Klein. He's a good man. I've known him 20 years. He knows everything. Call him. He'll help you fight back. Protect our children, my love. Especially Amanda. Forever yours, Susan. I couldn't breathe. Christopher put his arm around my shoulders. She knew, I whispered. She knew what Kenneth was planning. We need to call this lawyer. Now. Howard Klein agreed to meet us that afternoon. He was in his late 60s with white hair and sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. His office was lined with law books. I've been waiting for this call, he said. Susan told me someone might try to challenge the trust. I just didn't expect it so quickly. You knew my wife. 20 years. We served on the library foundation board together. When she came to me in February, she was frightened. She said her family was in danger. Why didn't she tell me? Howard's expression softened. She was worried about your reaction, and she believed Kenneth had people watching the family. If you'd suddenly started moving assets, it would have raised red flags. The will Kenneth showed me is either a forgery or signed under duress. The irrevocable trust supersedes any will. The house legally belongs to the trust with you as beneficiary. Kenneth has no claim whatsoever. Relief flooded through me. So I can go home? Not yet. We'll need to file paperwork with the court present. The trust documents likely get a restraining order. It will take a few days. But yes, Thomas, that house is yours. Susan made absolutely certain of it. Christopher leaned forward. What about Amanda? Can Kenneth be charged with elder abuse? Possibly. If we can prove Amanda was forced to participate under duress, she could be granted immunity for testimony. Howard looked at me carefully. But that depends on whether Amanda is willing to come forward. She's terrified of them, I said. But then we need to give her a reason to be more afraid of staying silent. Howard pulled out a legal pad. Tell me everything. We spent 2 hours walking through the eviction, Kenneth's threats, Amanda's behavior. Howard took notes and occasionally shook his head. When we finished, he sat back. This is elder abuse fraud, possibly extortion. If Kenneth's will was forged, that's a felony. We have a strong case. What do we do now? First, we file an emergency motion to void the eviction and restore your access. Second, cease and desist letters to Kenneth and Amanda. Third, he paused. There's something else, isn't there? Susan mentioned she was gathering evidence. Christopher and I looked at each other. There's another box, Christopher said. In the storage unit. Mom labeled it Mom's Craft Supplies. Howard's eyebrows rose. Thomas, the box labeled Mom's Craft Supplies. Did you open it? Not yet. I suggest you do. Susan was very deliberate. If she labeled something that specifically, there's a reason. We left Howard's office with hope for the first time in days. The house was mine. Susan had protected us. Kenneth's plan was falling apart. But as we drove back to Lakewood, I couldn't stop thinking about that second box. What else had Susan left us? We went back to the storage unit that night. I couldn't wait. Whatever Susan had left in that box labeled Mom's Craft Supplies, felt urgent, like she was calling to us from beyond the grave. Christopher drove. Neither of us spoke during the 20-minute ride. The storage facility was nearly empty at 10 p.m., just a few scattered cars in the lot and the hum of security lights overhead. Unit 247 felt different this time, more sacred somehow, like we were about to discover something that would change everything. Christopher pulled the box toward us. It was heavier than expected. I cut through the packing tape with my keys hands shaking. Inside, carefully wrapped in bubble wrap, were 4 small cameras, the kind you'd use for home security. Beneath them, receipts from an electronics store dated February 28, 2024. Installation instructions, a portable hard drive, and another letter from Susan. Christopher picked up one of the cameras. "These are wireless, battery-powered. You can hide them anywhere." I unfolded Susan's letter. Her handwriting was shakier than the first letter, like she'd written this one when she was sicker. Thomas I installed cameras in the house. 4 of them: living room, kitchen, hallway, and my office. I hid them in picture frames on bookshelves, places no one would notice. They've been recording since March 10th. Everything is backed up to a cloud account. I set it to save automatically every night. 6 months of storage. The password is hidden in the will. You'll figure it out, you always do. Think about us. Think about beginnings. I'm so sorry I had to do this in secret. I'm sorry for so many things. But I needed proof. I needed you to see what I saw, to understand what's been happening. Watch the videos, my love. All of them. And then do what needs to be done. Protect our children. S. The password is in the will. Christopher had already pulled up the document on his phone. What does she mean? I thought about Susan's words. Think about us. Think about beginnings. When did we meet? I asked. Christopher looked up. You met in 1990, right? You've told that story a million times. The library downtown. You were researching something for work, and Mom was the librarian who helped you find the right book. 1961. What? We didn't meet in 1990. That's when we started dating. We actually met in 1961. We were both 4 years old. Our mothers were friends. Susan used to joke that we'd been destined since we were in diapers. I grabbed Christopher's phone and scanned the will. There, look at the trust name. The Our Foundation Trust. Our Foundation. 1961. Our Foundation, 1961, I whispered. That's the password. Christopher pulled out his laptop, connecting to the storage facility's Wi-Fi. His fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing a cloud storage login page. He typed in an email address we found on one of the receipts, Susan Gardner. Backup@cloudmail.com. Password Our Foundation, 1961. The screen loaded. A folder appeared. Home Security, March to June 2024. Inside were 47 video files, each one labeled with a date and location. The earliest was dated March 10th, 2024. The most recent was June 7th, 2024, the day I was evicted. 47 videos. Christopher breathed. Mom recorded everything. I clicked on the first file, March 10th, 2024, living room, 10:30 a.m. The video opened. The angle was high. Susan must have hidden the camera on the bookshelf near the ceiling. The quality was surprisingly good. I could see our living room clearly, the couch Susan had picked out, the coffee table, the window overlooking the front yard, and Kenneth Hutchinson standing in the middle of our living room. I felt Christopher tense beside me. Kenneth was alone. He walked around slowly, examining things. He picked up a photo of Susan and me from our anniversary, studied it, and set it down. He opened drawers in the side table. He went to Susan's office door and tried the handle locked. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. The audio was muffled, but we could hear him. "Yeah, I'm at the house." "No, the old man's at work. The place is worth at least $850, maybe $900 if we're lucky." "Don't worry about the wife. She's not going to be a problem much longer." My blood went cold. "She's sick, Trevor. Heart failure. Doctor said she's got maybe 6 months. Once she's gone, we move fast. Yeah, the daughter's on board. I've made sure of that." Kenneth walked to the mantel where Susan's photo sat the same spot where her urn would rest 2 months later. "This house is going to save us," Kenneth said into the phone. $2.8 million in debt, and this property is our way out. The old man won't even see it coming." He hung up and left. The video ended. Christopher and I sat in silence. My hands were shaking so hard I had to clasp them together. "He planned it," Christopher finally said. "Even before Mom died, he was planning to take the house." She knew. I thought about Susan installing cameras while I was at work, hiding them, setting up the cloud backup, all while her heart was failing. She knew what he was planning, and she recorded it. Christopher was already scrolling through the other files. "Dad, look at the dates. There are videos from late March all through April." He stopped. His face went white. "What?" He turned the laptop toward me. April 19th, 2024. Living room, 11:47 p.m. The night Susan died. She died at 3:47 a.m. on April 19th. This video was from 12 hours earlier. "Dad!" Christopher's voice was barely a whisper. "There's a video labeled, 'The Night Mom Died.'" I stared at the file name. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Susan had died of a heart attack. That's what the doctors said. Sudden cardiac arrest. Her heart had been weak for months, and it had simply given out. But Susan had cameras running that night, and she'd made sure we'd find them. I reached for the laptop. Christopher caught my hand. "Dad, if there's something on this video, if it shows..." He couldn't finish the sentence. I understood what he was asking. If Kenneth had done something to Susan, if her death wasn't natural, if what we were about to watch was evidence of murder. "We have to know," I said. Christopher nodded. His hand was steady as he moved the cursor over the file. But before he could click, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I know what you're doing. Whatever you think you found, it won't help. The house is ours. Stay away or Amanda pays the price. Kenneth." He was threatening Amanda now. Threatening my daughter to keep me silent. I showed Christopher the text. His jaw tightened. "Click it," I said. "We need to see what happened that night." Christopher's finger hovered over the trackpad. 47 videos. 6 months of footage. Evidence of Kenneth's plan, his threats, his conspiracy, and somewhere in these files possibly proof of what really happened to Susan. My wife had spent her last months preparing for this moment, gathering evidence, protecting us, leaving us the weapons we needed to fight back. "Dad." Christopher's voice shook. "One video is labeled, 'The Night Mom Died.'" I looked at my son, Susan's son, and saw her strength reflected in his eyes. "Then let's watch it," I said. "Let's see what your mother wanted us to know." Christopher's hand trembled as he clicked on the file labeled April 19th, 2024. Living room, 11:47 p.m. The video loaded. Our living room appeared on screen, dimly lit by a single lamp. The timestamp in the corner read 11:47 p.m., less than 4 hours before Susan died. 3 people sat on our couch, Kenneth Trevor and Donna Hutchinson, in our house, the night my wife died. "What the hell were they doing there?" Christopher whispered. I couldn't answer. I couldn't breathe. Kenneth was speaking, his voice low but clear. Is she asleep? Took the pills 20 minutes ago. That was Trevor. Should be out for hours. Good. Kenneth leaned back, looking satisfied. Plan B worked better than expected. Faster, too. Donna's voice came next, sharp and nervous. Are you sure this can't be traced? Relax. Kenneth waved his hand dismissively. Digitalis is natural, comes from plants. In someone with a failing heart, it just looks like cardiac arrest. Doctors won't even think to test for it. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table. The old lady won't be a problem anymore, Kenneth continued. And in a few weeks, once the grief settles, we move on the house. Amanda's already signed the paperwork. She's having second thoughts, Trevor said. Then remind her what happens if she doesn't cooperate. Kenneth's voice turned cold. We're in too deep. That house is worth $850,000. It's the only way out of this hole. Donna stood up, pacing. I still think this is too risky. It's done, Donna. Kenneth stood too, straightening his jacket. Susan Gardner took her sleeping pills with a little extra help tonight. By morning she'll be gone and no one will ever know. Now let's get out of here before the old man comes home. The three of them walked out of frame. A door closed softly. The video continued for another minute, just an empty living room. Then it ended. Christopher and I sat in complete silence. The storage unit felt too small, too cold. I couldn't process what I'd just seen. They killed her. Christopher's voice was hollow. They murdered Mom. Digitalis. My own voice sounded distant. That's what Kenneth said. It comes from foxglove plants. Can that really cause a heart attack? In someone with heart disease, yes. It would look completely natural. I felt tears streaming down my face. Susan knew. She knew what they were planning, and she left the camera running to record it. Christopher was already pulling up another video. Dad, if this one shows what happened, there are 46 more videos. We need to see all of them. He clicked on another file. March 15th, 2024, office 2:34 p.m. This angle was different. Susan's office. The camera must have been hidden on her bookshelf. Kenneth was alone again, sitting at Susan's desk with her laptop open. We watched as he typed into a search engine. Christopher paused the video and zoomed in on the screen. The search query was clearly visible: untraceable heart attack methods. Below it, digitalis, foxglove, cardiac arrest, and how to induce heart failure naturally. He researched it. Christopher's hands were shaking. He researched how to murder Mom, and she caught it on camera. I thought about March 15th. That was a month before Susan died. She'd been getting weaker, spending more time at home. I'd been at work that day. Susan had been alone with her camera, watching Kenneth plan her murder in real time. How terrified she must have been. There's more, Christopher said, clicking on another file. April 25th, 2024, living room 2:15 p.m. 6 days after Susan's funeral. I recognized the date. It was the day I'd gone to the cemetery alone to sit with Susan's grave. Amanda had said she'd come by the house to pick up some of her mother's things. The video showed Amanda sitting on the couch, crying. Kenneth sat beside her, Trevor on her other side. They had her boxed in. I can't do this, Amanda was saying, her voice thick with tears. I can't take Dad's house. Mom just died. Your mother's gone. Kenneth's voice was gentle, but his eyes were hard. And your father is going to be fine. We're not throwing him out on the street. We'll make sure he has a place to stay. But the house was theirs. The house is yours now. Kenneth pulled out a document. Your mother left it to you. It's legal. All you have to do is sign this transfer agreement, and we can help your father transition to something more manageable. A nice apartment, somewhere easier for a man his age. I don't know. Amanda was wavering. Trevor put his hand on her shoulder. His voice was soft, almost loving. Baby, we've talked about this. My dad's business is in trouble. We're in trouble. We owe $2.8 million. If we don't come up with money soon, we lose everything. The house, our cars, our lives, everything. Your husband needs you, Kenneth added. Your family needs you. And it's just a house, Amanda. Your father will understand eventually. What if he fights it? He won't. Kenneth's smile didn't reach his eyes. He's grieving. He's not thinking clearly. By the time he realizes what happened, it'll be too late to contest. And if he does try... Kenneth leaned in closer. Remember, Amanda, you signed documents. If this goes to court, you'll be implicated too. You could lose your accounting license. You could face fraud charges. Amanda's face crumpled. You said this would be simple. It is simple, as long as you cooperate. Kenneth's voice turned hard. You're part of this family now, and family takes care of each other, or face the consequences together. The threat was clear. Amanda signed the document with shaking hands. The video ended. Jesus Christ. Christopher's face was pale. She didn't betray you, Dad. They forced her. They threatened her. I thought about Amanda's face on the porch during the eviction. The guilt. The fear. She hadn't wanted to do it. She'd been trapped. Susan tried to tell me, I said, remembering the hospital. She said to protect Amanda especially. She knew our daughter was being controlled. Christopher pulled up another video. And another. We watched for 2 hours as the story unfolded across 47 files. Kenneth visiting the house repeatedly when I was at work. Trevor coaching Amanda on what to say, how to act. Donna keeping watch. Videos of Kenneth and Trevor discussing their debt, their desperation, their plan to sell the house quickly and split the profits 3 ways. And throughout it all, Susan's cameras recorded everything. The final video we watched was from June 7th, the day of the eviction. After I'd left with my suitcases, Kenneth, Trevor, and Donna gathered in the living room again. $850,000, Kenneth said, grinning. I've already got a buyer lined up. We close in 2 weeks. What about Amanda? Donna asked. What about her? She did her part. She'll get enough to keep quiet. Kenneth poured himself a drink from my liquor cabinet. Split 3 ways, we each clear about $280. More than enough to cover the debt and start fresh. And if the old man figures it out, Kenneth laughed. What's he going to do? His wife is dead. His daughter threw him out. He's got nothing. No one will believe him. But Kenneth was wrong. Susan had given me everything. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My wife had spent her final months knowing she was going to be murdered. She'd installed cameras. She'd gathered evidence. She'd protected the house legally. She'd documented everything so that after she was gone, we'd have the proof we needed. Susan had recorded her own murder and left the evidence to save us all. Dad. Christopher's voice pulled me back. We need to call the police, now. And Howard Klein. I was already reaching for my phone. We need the lawyer, too. What about Amanda? I looked at the screen frozen on Amanda's tear-stained face as Kenneth threatened her. My daughter, still trapped in that house with murderers. We get her out, I said. Whatever it takes, we get her out. That's what Susan wanted. Christopher nodded. What do we do first? I thought about Susan's letter. Watch the videos, then do what needs to be done. We take them down, I said. All of them. For Susan, we left the storage unit at 2 a.m. with copies of every video file on 2 separate hard drives. Christopher insisted on redundancy. If Kenneth found one, we'd still have the other. Smart kid. Susan's son. But I couldn't sleep when we got back to Martin's house. I kept thinking about the videos about Susan installing those cameras while I was at work, knowing what was coming. So I sat in the guest room and watched more footage piecing together the timeline of my wife's final months. One video stood out, March 8th, 2024, living room 10:15 a.m. The angle showed Susan herself standing on a stepladder in front of the bookshelf. She was adjusting something, the camera, I realized. Installing it. Her hands were shaking badly. She'd been sick by then, her heart failing, but she climbed that ladder anyway. She stepped down carefully and looked directly at where she'd hidden the camera. For just a moment, she stared straight into the lens. Her face was thin, tired, but her eyes were fierce. Then she whispered, just loud enough for the microphone to catch. "I love you, Thomas. I'm sorry I have to do this alone, but I'm going to protect our family. I promise." She walked away. The video continued, recording an empty room for another minute before cutting off. I had to pause it, put my head in my hands, breathe. Susan had known she was dying. She'd known Kenneth was planning something terrible, and instead of telling me, instead of asking for help, she'd borne it alone. She'd installed cameras in secret, gathered evidence, set up legal protections, all while her heart was giving out. Because she'd known I wouldn't have let her carry that burden. I would have confronted Kenneth immediately, probably made everything worse. Susan had always been the planner, the careful one. Even dying, she'd been 3 steps ahead. Another video caught my attention. March 28th, 2024, kitchen 12:30 p.m. This one showed Susan and Amanda sitting at our kitchen table. I remembered this day Susan had called Amanda and asked her to come for lunch. Just the two of them. Trevor had been at work. I turned up the volume. "Thanks for coming, honey." Susan's voice was weak but warm. She pushed a plate of sandwiches toward Amanda. "I made your favorite, turkey and avocado." "Thanks, Mom." Amanda looked uncomfortable. She kept checking her phone. "Amanda." Susan reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "Look at me." Amanda did reluctantly. "Are you happy?" Susan asked. "Of course I'm happy. Trevor and I are doing great." "That's not what I asked." Susan's grip tightened. "Are you happy, not Trevor? Not your in-laws? You?" Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, I don't want to talk about this." "Sweetheart, I'm dying." Susan said it plainly, without drama. "My heart is failing. I have maybe a few months left. And I need to know that you're going to be okay after I'm gone." "Don't say that. Amanda, please." Susan's voice broke. "Whatever is happening, whatever you're caught up in, you can tell me. I can help. Your father and I, we can protect you." For a moment, I thought Amanda would break. Her face crumpled and she opened her mouth to speak. Then her phone rang. Trevor's name flashed on the screen. The change in Amanda was instant. She pulled her hand away from Susan's, wiped her eyes, and answered with a bright, false voice. "Hey, babe. Yeah, just having lunch with Mom. I'll be home soon." She listened for a moment. "No, everything's fine. Just girl talk." She laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Okay. Love you too." When she hung up, the moment was gone. Amanda stood up, gathering her purse. "I should go. Trevor wants me to meet his parents for dinner tonight, and I need to get ready." "Amanda. Thanks for lunch, Mom." Amanda leaned down and kissed Susan's cheek quickly. "I'll call you later." She left. Susan sat alone at the table for a long time after Amanda left. I watched my wife cry silently, her shoulders shaking. She knew then. She knew our daughter was trapped and too frightened to ask for help. The video ended. I found another file from the same day, March 28, 2024, office 3:45 p.m. This showed Susan at her desk writing. The letter, I realized. One of the letters she'd left in the storage unit. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold the pen, but she kept writing. When she finished, she folded the letter carefully and put it in an envelope. Then she looked at the camera. She knew exactly where it was and spoke directly to it. "Thomas, if you're watching this, then I'm gone, and I'm sorry." Her voice was steady despite the tears on her face. "I'm sorry I couldn't save Amanda in time. I'm sorry I had to do all of this in secret. But I couldn't risk Kenneth finding out. He's dangerous. More dangerous than I ever imagined." She took a shaky breath. "I tried to reach her today. Our daughter. I tried to give her a chance to tell me the truth, to ask for help. But she's too scared. They've got her completely isolated." Susan wiped her eyes. "She's still in there, though. Our Amanda. I saw her for just a moment before that phone call. She wanted to tell me. She wanted to break free, and that means there's hope." She leaned closer to the camera. "When the time comes, show them who they really are. Show them what they've done. Use these videos. Use the trust. Use everything I've left you. And then," her voice softened, "forgive her, Thomas. Forgive Amanda. She's still our daughter. She's still the little girl who picked flowers in the backyard and made us breakfast in bed on our anniversaries. She's just lost right now. Trapped." Susan's hands were shaking worse now. "Protect our children, my love. Especially Amanda. She needs you even if she doesn't know it yet." The video ended. I sat in the dark of Martin's guest room at 3 a.m, tears streaming down my face. Susan had seen everything. She'd understood that Amanda wasn't a villain, but a victim. And even while planning her own protection, gathering evidence of Kenneth's murder plot, Susan had been thinking about how to save our daughter. I thought about Amanda's face during the eviction. The guilt, the fear, the pain in her eyes when she'd told me I had to leave. She hadn't wanted to do it. Kenneth had threatened her, manipulated her, isolated her, until she felt she had no choice. And now she was still trapped in that house with the people who'd killed her mother. I opened my phone and looked at the text Kenneth had sent earlier. "Stay away, or Amanda pays the price." He was using our daughter as a hostage, as leverage. But Kenneth had made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated Susan. He'd thought that killing a sick woman with a failing heart would go unnoticed. He'd thought there'd be no evidence, no trail, no consequences. He hadn't counted on my wife being smarter than him, braver than him, more determined to protect her family than he was to destroy it. I looked at the hard drives containing 47 videos, proof of conspiracy, coercion, and murder. Susan's final letter echoed in my mind. "Forgive her, Thomas. She's still our daughter." I would. After we freed her. After we brought Kenneth down. After justice was served. But first we had to finish what Susan started. Christopher didn't sleep either. When I came out of the guest room at 6 a.m., he was sitting at Martin's kitchen table with his laptop, 3 empty coffee cups beside him, and a determined look on his face. "I've been digging into Kenneth's finances," he said without looking up. "It's not pretty." I poured myself coffee and sat down. "How bad?" $2.8 million bad. Christopher turned the laptop toward me. "Kenneth Hutchinson is drowning. His real estate empire is built on debt. Commercial properties that aren't generating income. Development deals that fell through. Bridge loans he can't pay back." The screen showed a spreadsheet Christopher had compiled from public records, property liens, court filings, creditor claims. Kenneth owed money to banks, investors, contractors. The numbers were staggering. "He's been juggling payments for 2 years," Christopher continued. "Borrowing from one project to pay another. It's a house of cards and it's collapsing. According to this bankruptcy filing, he tried to declare Chapter 11 last year, but withdrew it. He needs at least $1.5 million immediately, or everything goes to foreclosure. Our house, I said quietly. Your house is worth $850,000, maybe $900 in the current market. It's liquid, easy to sell quickly. And if Kenneth can claim it belonged to Amanda through Mom's will, he can force a sale, split the money with Trevor and Amanda, and cover half his debt. Christopher's jaw tightened. Mom's house was never about greed. It was about survival. Kenneth's about to lose everything, and he decided murdering Mom was easier than bankruptcy. I thought about the video from the night Susan died. Plan B worked better than expected. Kenneth hadn't just wanted the house. He'd needed it desperately enough to kill for it. Does Amanda know how bad it is? I don't think so. Look at this. Christopher pulled up another document. Chiki, Trevor's name is on some of these loans too. Kenneth made his son a co-signer on several properties. If Kenneth goes down, Trevor goes down with him. That's how he's keeping Amanda in line, threatening to destroy his own son and take Amanda's husband down with him. Jesus. Kenneth's not just manipulative, Dad. He's desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Christopher asked, "What do we do?" I thought about Susan's videos, about Howard Klein's confirmation that the house was legally mine, about Amanda trapped in that house with murderers, about Kenneth's text threatening my daughter. We finish what your mother started, I said. We take everything she gave us, the videos, the trust, the evidence, and we destroy Kenneth Hutchinson. Christopher nodded slowly. How? We call Howard Klein. The lawyer answered on the second ring. I put him on speaker and told him everything we'd found, the videos, Kenneth's murder plot, the digitalis, Amanda's coercion, Kenneth's bankruptcy. Howard was silent for a long moment after we finished. Thomas. He finally said, his voice grave. What you're describing is conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, fraud, extortion, and possibly more. This goes far beyond a property dispute. I know. We need to involve the police immediately. Detective Martinez, I have a contact in the Denver PD who specializes in financial crimes and elder abuse. But, he paused. If we move too quickly, Kenneth might destroy evidence or harm Amanda. So what do? We need Kenneth to incriminate himself publicly, in front of witnesses, and we need to make sure Amanda is safe when we do it. Howard's voice took on a strategic edge. Have you heard anything about Kenneth planning some kind of event? Christopher and I looked at each other. What kind of event? Susan mentioned in one of our last conversations that Donna Hutchinson loved to show off. She said if Kenneth successfully took the house, Donna would absolutely throw some kind of celebration. A housewarming party, probably. Invite all their wealthy friends to show off their new property. I felt a cold smile spread across my face. You want us to wait for a party? I want Kenneth comfortable, confident, surrounded by witnesses, and then we hit him with everything at once. The trust documents proving the house is yours, the videos showing his conspiracy, and the police ready to make arrests. Howard's voice was hard now. We don't just want to win the house back, Thomas. We want Kenneth behind bars for murdering Susan. What about Amanda? During the party with dozens of witnesses present, Kenneth can't hurt her without exposing himself. That's when we extract her. We show her the videos of him threatening her. We offer her immunity in exchange for testimony. We give her a way out. It was risky. It meant waiting while Amanda stayed in that house. But it was also brilliant. How do we know they'll even throw a party? Leave that to me, Howard said. I have connections in their social circle. I'll put out some feelers, let it slip that there are questions about the house ownership. Donna Hutchinson won't be able to resist throwing a party to prove they're legitimate. Give it a few days. And in the meantime, we prepare. I'll draft emergency motions to void the eviction. Christopher, you compile everything you found about Kenneth's finances. Thomas, you organize the videos. We'll need them queued up and ready to play. And I'll reach out to Detective Sarah Martinez. She'll need to see the evidence and prepare arrest warrants. We spent the next 4 days preparing for war. Christopher created a timeline of every video, every threat, every piece of evidence. Howard filed preliminary motions with the court. I met with Detective Martinez, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, who watched the murder video 3 times and then quietly said, "I'm going to make sure this son of a bitch rots in prison." And we waited for the invitation. It came on June 13th. A cream-colored envelope addressed to me delivered to Martin's house. Someone had found out where I was staying. Christopher opened it. Inside was an elegant card with embossed lettering, "Kenneth and Donna Hutchinson cordially invite you to celebrate new beginnings. Saturday, June 22nd, 2024, 7 o'clock, p.m., 1247 Ridgeview Drive, Lakewood. My address. My house." Kenneth was throwing a party in the home he'd stolen from me, celebrating the murder of my wife. Christopher looked at me. "This is insane. He invited you to the house he kicked you out of." He's gloating. I stared at the invitation. He thinks he's won. He wants to rub it in my face. I pulled out my phone and called Howard Klein. "We got the invitation," I said when he answered. "Perfect." I could hear the satisfaction in Howard's voice. "June 22nd. That gives us 9 days to finalize everything. Detective Martinez can coordinate with her team. We'll need audio-visual equipment to play the videos, and I'll prepare the legal documents. What do I do? You show up to that party, Thomas, with your lawyer, your son, and the truth, and you take back everything Kenneth stole from you." After I hung up, I looked at Christopher. My son Susan's son met my eyes with the same determined expression his mother used to get when she'd made up her mind about something. "Are you ready for this?" I asked him. "Mom spent her last months preparing for this moment," Christopher said quietly. "She installed cameras. She gathered evidence. She protected the house. She did everything she could to give us the weapons we needed." He looked at the invitation in my hand. "Let's finish it. Let's go to that party." I looked at the invitation again. At my own address printed in elegant script. At Kenneth Hutchinson's name claiming ownership of my life. For the first time since Amanda had stood on my porch and told me to leave, I smiled. "Perfect," I said. The 9 days before the party felt like 9 years. Christopher and I lived in Martin's guest room like soldiers preparing for battle. The dining table became our war room, laptops, documents, USB drives containing 47 videos, legal briefs from Howard Klein, financial records exposing Kenneth's bankruptcy. Detective Sarah Martinez visited twice. The second time she brought her partner and a prosecutor. They watched the video of Kenneth, Trevor, and Donna discussing Plan B the night Susan died. They watched Kenneth search for untraceable heart attack methods. They watched him threaten Amanda. When the videos ended, Martinez looked at me with something like awe. "Your wife was remarkable. This is the most thoroughly documented murder conspiracy I've ever seen." "Can you arrest him?" I asked. "Not yet. We need to verify the videos are authentic, get them analyzed forensically. And we need corroborating evidence. Medical records, toxicology results." She paused. "But if you can get Kenneth to confess in front of witnesses with us present, then we have everything we need." That's what the party was for. The trap. Howard Klein coordinated everything with military precision. He arranged for audio-visual equipment. A friend who ran an event company would arrive early and set up a projector and screen claiming to be hired entertainment. Detective Martinez and 2 plainclothes officers would attend as guests. Howard himself would come as my lawyer, giving us legal standing to present evidence. The morning of June 22nd, I put on the suit Susan had bought me for our 30th anniversary. Christopher wore slacks and a button-down. We looked respectable, prepared. "You ready?" Christopher asked. I looked at the USB drive in my hand, all 47 videos carefully organized, queued up to play in the right order. Susan's final gift. "Let's go get our house back," I said. We arrived at 7:15, fashionably late. Cars lined the street. Through the windows, I could see people milling around in my living room, holding wine glasses, laughing. Like this was normal, like my wife hadn't been murdered in that house 3 months ago. Howard Klein met us at the door. "Equipment set up. Martinez is inside with her team. The AV guy put the projector in the corner, told everyone it's for a slideshow later." He straightened his tie. "You sure you want to do this?" "I've never been more sure of anything." We walked in together. The house looked different. Donna had redecorated, new curtains, new furniture, new art on the walls. Every trace of Susan had been erased. 30 years of our life together wiped away in 2 weeks. The guests were Kenneth's type, wealthy, overdressed, fake smiling. About 30 people total, clustered in groups admiring the house. My house. Kenneth saw me first. He was standing by the fireplace, the same spot where Susan's urn had sat, holding a scotch and talking to a couple I didn't recognize. His face went pale for just a second before he recovered, plastering on a smile. "Thomas?" He crossed the room toward us, hand extended. "What a surprise. I didn't think you'd come. You invited me." I didn't shake his hand. "Well, yes, of course. I thought it would be good for closure. Show there's no hard feelings." Kenneth's eyes flicked to Howard Klein. "And you brought your lawyer. How formal." "Mr. Hutchinson." Howard's voice was ice. "We have some matters to discuss. Legal matters." Kenneth's smile tightened. "This is a party. Hardly the place." "It's exactly the place," I said. Donna appeared beside Kenneth, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my car. She looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. "Thomas, how nice of you to come. Though I'm not sure why you brought an entourage. This is my son Christopher and my attorney Howard Klein." "How official." Donna's laugh was brittle. "Kenneth, darling, perhaps we should make the toast before things get too serious." Kenneth recovered his composure. "Of course." He raised his voice, addressing the room. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" The conversations died down. 30 faces turned toward us. I saw Amanda in the corner, partially hidden behind Trevor. She looked thin, pale, terrified. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away. Kenneth raised his glass. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate new beginnings. This house," he gestured expansively, "represents everything my family has worked for. A beautiful home in a wonderful neighborhood. It belonged to my late mother-in-law, Susan, God rest her soul. And now it belongs to my daughter-in-law, Amanda, and my son, Trevor." Murmurs of approval from the guests. Someone said, "Lovely home." Susan would have wanted the house to stay in the family. Kenneth continued, his voice full of fake emotion. "And Thomas here," he nodded toward me, "has been very understanding about the transition. Haven't you, Thomas?" Every eye in the room turned to me. I saw Amanda flinch. Saw Trevor put his hand on her shoulder, keeping her in place. Saw Donna's satisfied smirk. And I saw Detective Martinez standing near the door, watching everything with sharp eyes. Kenneth raised his glass higher. "So here's to family, to new beginnings, Actually, Kenneth, I said, stepping forward. Let's talk about old beginnings, like 1995? The room went quiet. Kenneth's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened. I'm not sure what you mean. I mean the year this house was purchased. October 15th, 1995, to be exact. I pulled a document from my jacket pocket. Would you like to know who owns this house, Kenneth, the real owner? This is hardly appropriate, Susan Waverly. I read from the deed. Not Susan Gardner. Susan Waverly, her maiden name. She purchased this house as sole owner 30 years ago, and she never changed it. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Kenneth's face flushed. So what, Susan left everything to Amanda in her will? Actually. Howard Klein stepped forward, pulling out his own documents. Susan left everything to Thomas in her legal will, the one she signed March 1st, 2024, 6 weeks before her death. She also established an irrevocable trust with me as trustee specifically to protect this house for her husband. The room was dead silent now. Kenneth's mask began to crack. That's impossible. We have the will, you have a forgery, or a document signed under duress. Howard's voice carried across the room. Which means, Mr. Hutchinson, you and your family are currently occupying a house you have no legal right to. You've committed fraud, elder abuse, and quite possibly extortion. Donna's face went white. Trevor's hand tightened on Amanda's shoulder, and Kenneth's expression transformed from fake confidence to barely controlled rage. This is absurd. Kenneth's voice was too loud. I won't stand here and be accused. Then perhaps you'd like to sit, I said. Because we have something else to show everyone. Something my wife left behind. Something that explains exactly what's been happening here. I nodded to Christopher. He moved toward the projector in the corner. Let's talk about beginnings, Kenneth. Let's start with March 10th, 2024. The first time you broke into my house, Christopher connected his laptop to the projector. The white wall opposite the fireplace where Donna had hung an expensive abstract painting became our screen. Kenneth moved toward him. You need to leave. Now. This is a private event. This is my house, I said, and everyone here is about to learn the truth. Detective Martinez stepped forward from where she'd been standing by the door. Mr. Hutchinson, I'd suggest you let them finish. I'm very interested in what they have to show. Kenneth's eyes darted to Martinez, then back to me. He was cornered, and he knew it. The deed proves Susan was sole owner. Howard Klein continued addressing the room. But there's more. On March 1st, 2024, Susan established an irrevocable trust. He held up the document. This house was placed in trust for Thomas Gardner's lifetime use. Upon his death, it passes to the children. But under no circumstances can it be sold without the trustee's approval. My approval or used as collateral for debt. That's a lie. Kenneth's voice cracked. Susan was sick. She didn't have the mental capacity. I met with Susan 6 times between February and March. Howard said calmly. She was completely lucid. I have detailed notes from every meeting. She knew exactly what she was doing and why. Guests were whispering now, phones coming out. This was going to be all over Denver society by morning. Fine. Kenneth's face was red. Even if that trust exists, I invested $108,000 in this house. Renovations, repairs. That money is owed to me. Actually, no. I pulled another document from my pocket. Here's a receipt dated April 15th, 2019. Susan's signature, your signature, and a notarized statement that all loans and investments between the Gardner and Hutchinson families have been repaid in full. $108,000, paid back 5 years ago. I handed the receipt to the nearest guest. It passed from hand to hand around the room. People were backing away from Kenneth, now sensing scandal. Kenneth's facade finally cracked. "You don't know what you're doing, old man. That house is worth $850,000. My family has a right. Your family has no rights here." My voice was steady. "You murdered my wife to steal this house, and we have proof." The room erupted. Guests gasped. Donna grabbed Kenneth's arm. Trevor's face went white. Amanda made a small, broken sound. Kenneth laughed. Actually laughed. "That's insane. Susan died of a heart attack. Natural causes." "Her doctor will confirm." "Christopher," I said. "Show them video 5. My son clicked a button. The projector hummed to life. The screen filled with an image of our living room. The timestamp in the corner read June 5, 2024. Living room, 3:47 p.m. Kenneth appeared on screen, sitting on our couch with Trevor and Donna. The audio was crystal clear. $850,000. Kenneth's voice came through the projector speakers. "I've already got a buyer lined up. We close in 2 weeks." "What about Amanda?" "That was Donna." "What about her? She did her part. She'll get enough to keep quiet." Kenneth poured himself a drink. "Split 3 ways, we each clear about $280. More than enough to cover the debt and start fresh. And if the old man figures it out." Kenneth on screen laughed. "What's he going to do? His wife is dead. His daughter threw him out. He's got nothing. No one will believe him." The room was dead silent. Every guest stared at the screen in horror. At Kenneth planning to sell my house and split the profits. At him calling his own daughter-in-law a tool. At him mocking my wife's death. Real Kenneth standing in my living room had gone from red to white. "Turn that off. That's illegally obtained." "It's from cameras my wife installed in her own home," Howard Klein said. "Perfectly legal." Kenneth lunged for the projector. Detective Martinez moved faster, stepping between him and Christopher. "Mr. Hutchinson, I suggest you stay where you are." "This is absurd." Donna's voice was shrill. "Someone clearly doctored those videos. We have 47 videos spanning 6 months." Christopher said coldly. "All time-stamped, all authenticated. Want to see more?" He clicked to the next file. March 10, 2024. Living room, 10:30 a.m. Kenneth appeared again alone, this time walking through our house when I was at work. "Making a phone call." "Yeah, I'm at the house. The place is worth at least $850, maybe $900. Don't worry about the wife. She's not going to be a problem much longer." Gasps from the guests. Someone said, "Oh my God." "She's sick, Trevor. Heart failure. Doctor said she's got maybe 6 months. Once she's gone, we move fast." Kenneth on screen walked to the mantel looking at Susan's photo. "This house is going to save us. 2.8 million in debt, and this property is our way out." The video ended. The room erupted. People shouting questions. Phones out now recording. Donna crying. Trevor frozen in place. Kenneth's mask was completely gone now. "You can't prove anything." Some videos of me talking about business. "We're not done," I said. My voice carried across the chaos. Christopher showed them video 4, April 25, 2024, living room, 2:15 p.m. This time the image showed Amanda on our couch crying. Kenneth beside her. Trevor on her other side boxing her in. The room watched in silence as Kenneth threatened my daughter, as he told her about the debt, as he said she'd face fraud charges if she didn't cooperate, as Trevor manipulated her with talk of losing everything, as my daughter signed away my house with tears streaming down her face, terrified and trapped. When the video ended, every eye in the room turned to Amanda. She was crying silently, one hand over her mouth. "You coerced her," Howard Klein said. His voice was hard. You manipulated a grieving daughter into committing fraud against her own father. She's an adult, Kenneth snarled. She made her own choices. She was terrorized. I stepped toward Kenneth. You isolated her. You threatened her. You used her mother's death to control her. And you murdered Susan to make it all possible. You're insane. Susan died of natural causes. Christopher, I said. Show them video 3. My son met my eyes. We'd saved this one for last. The worst one. The one that would end Kenneth Hutchinson. Christopher clicked the file. April 19th, 2024. Living room 11:47 p.m. the night Susan died. Kenneth, Trevor, and Donna appeared on screen in our house, hours before my wife's death. The room went absolutely silent as Kenneth's voice came through the speakers. Is she asleep? Took the pills 20 minutes ago. Should be out for hours. Good. Plan B worked better than expected. Someone in the crowd screamed. Others started shouting. Kenneth tried to move toward the projector again, but Martinez grabbed his arm. On screen, Kenneth continued, Digitalis is natural, comes from plants. In someone with a failing heart, it just looks like cardiac arrest. The old lady won't be a problem anymore. The video ended. For a moment, no one moved. Then chaos erupted. Guests backing away from Kenneth in horror. Someone yelling about calling 911. Donna sobbing. Trevor standing frozen, realizing his father had just confessed to murder in front of 30 witnesses. Kenneth's face was white. That's taken out of context. Context. My voice shook with rage. You murdered my wife. You poisoned her. And then you tried to steal everything she'd built. Everything we'd built together. Detective Martinez stepped forward, pulling out handcuffs. Kenneth Hutchinson, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, fraud, and extortion. Turn that off! Kenneth screamed, trying to lunge past Martinez toward the projector. Turn it off! Christopher stood his ground, voice cold as ice. No, there are 46 more. Still here, comment truth below to let me know you're following Thomas's fight for justice. The next part is where everything Kenneth tried to hide comes crashing down. Fair warning, this story blends real-world issues with creative storytelling for educational purposes. If you'd rather not continue, now's the time to exit. But those who stay will see how Susan's final gift delivers justice. 2 uniformed officers burst through the front door, hands on their weapons. Detective Martinez had called them the moment video 3 started playing. They'd been waiting outside for the signal. Everyone stay calm, Martinez announced to the panicking crowd. This is now a crime scene. No one leaves until we've taken statements. Kenneth was still trying to push past her toward the projector. Those videos are fake edited, you can't. Christopher, I said quietly. Show them video 6. My son clicked another file. March 15th, 2024, office 2:34 p.m. The screen showed Susan's office. Kenneth sitting at her desk alone using her laptop. The camera angle was perfect. Susan had positioned it to capture the screen clearly. We watched Kenneth type into the search bar. The text appeared on the projector, blown up large enough for everyone to read. Untraceable heart attack methods. Digitalis foxglove cardiac arrest. How to induce heart failure naturally. Digitalis poisoning symptoms. The room erupted again. Guests screaming. Someone vomiting in the corner. Donna collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Trevor just stood there, staring at the screen, watching his father research how to murder someone. Kenneth's face had gone from white to gray. I was researching for a book, a novel I was thinking about writing, a month before Susan died. Howard Klein's voice cut through the noise. How convenient. We have more, Christopher said. He pulled up a split screen, multiple videos playing simultaneously. Kenneth entering the house when I was at work. Kenneth going through Susan's medicine cabinet. Kenneth and Trevor discussing their debt. Kenneth telling Donna the old lady won't be a problem much longer. 6 months of evidence all playing at once on the wall of my living room. Detective Martinez nodded to her officers. Kenneth Hutchinson, Trevor Hutchinson, Donna Hutchinson, you're all under arrest. What? Donna's head snapped up. I didn't do anything, I didn't know. Video 3 shows you present during a conspiracy to commit murder, Martinez said coldly. You heard Kenneth discuss digitalis poisoning and you didn't report it. That makes you an accessory. I thought he was joking, I didn't think. You knew. I found myself walking toward Donna. You knew he was planning something and you helped him. You helped him steal my house. You helped him throw me out. You stood by while he murdered my wife. Donna dissolved into tears, but I felt nothing. No pity. No mercy. The officers moved in. Kenneth tried to run, actually tried to bolt for the back door. One of the uniforms caught him easily, slamming him against the wall and cuffing his hands behind his back. You're making a mistake, Kenneth shouted as they hauled him toward the door. I'm a respected businessman. I have lawyers you'll be hearing from. Kenneth Hutchinson. Martinez's voice was flat and official. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, fraud, extortion, and trespassing. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Trevor didn't resist when the second officer cuffed him. He just stood there broken as his world collapsed around him. Dad, what did you do? He whispered. What the hell did you do? Kenneth ignored him. This is illegal. Those videos are inadmissible. My lawyers will... Your lawyers will see you at arraignment, Martinez said, which given the severity of these charges won't be for a while. Murder conspiracy. You're not getting bail. That's when Amanda moved. She'd been frozen in the corner the whole time watching her husband and his parents get arrested, watching the videos that proved what they'd done, watching her mother's murder plan laid bare for 30 witnesses to see. Now she stumbled forward, her legs giving out halfway across the room. I caught her before she hit the ground. Dad, she sobbed. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know about Mom. I swear I didn't know they killed her. I thought she just died. I thought... I know, sweetheart. I held her as she broke down completely. I know you didn't know. I should have told you. I should have asked for help. But they said they'd destroy Trevor. They said I'd go to jail. They said, shh. I pulled her closer. You're safe now. They can't hurt you anymore. Christopher joined us, wrapping his arms around both of us. My children. Susan's children. Finally together again. Amanda cried for a long time. When she finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and her eyes were red. Mom knew, didn't she? She knew I was trapped. She did. I showed her the phone in my hand, pulled up the video of Susan's last message. She left this for us. She said to protect you. She said you were still our daughter. Amanda watched the video of her mother, weak and dying, still fighting to save her family. When it ended, Amanda whispered, she installed the cameras. She knew they were planning something and she left evidence. She loved you, I said. Even at the end, she understood you were a victim. Mr. Gardner, Detective Martinez approached us. I need to speak with your daughter. Given the videos showing coercion, we're prepared to offer Amanda immunity in exchange for full cooperation and testimony against Kenneth and Trevor. Amanda looked at me terrified. What does that mean? It means you tell them everything I said. Everything Kenneth did, everything Trevor said, all the threats, all the manipulation, you help put them away and you don't face charges. I'll testify, Amanda said immediately. I'll tell them everything, whatever it takes. Martinez nodded. We'll need a formal statement. But for now, she looked around at the chaos of the party guests being interviewed by officers. Kenneth being hauled out the front door in handcuffs. Why don't you three go somewhere quiet? You've been through enough tonight. As if on cue, Kenneth's voice rang out from the front yard. This isn't over. You hear me, Thomas? My lawyers will tear you apart. You can't prove anything. Martinez and I walked to the door. Kenneth was being loaded into a police car, still fighting, still shouting. Actually, Mr. Hutchinson, Martinez said, her voice carrying across the yard. She held up a manila folder. We can prove everything. We exhumed Susan Gardner's body yesterday. Rush toxicology results came back this morning. Kenneth went still. Digitalis, Martinez said. Just like you searched for. Just like you discussed on camera. We found it in her system. Kenneth's face crumpled. The fight went out of him all at once. He slumped in the police car, head down, broken. Trevor was crying as they loaded him into the second car. Donna was still sobbing, trying to tell anyone who'd listen that she didn't know, she didn't understand, it wasn't her fault. But it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. Susan had made sure of that. As the police cars pulled away, sirens wailing, I stood on the porch of my house with my children beside me. The guests had all been cleared out. The videos had been seized as evidence. Howard Klein was inside already filing emergency motions to restore my ownership. Christopher put his arm around my shoulders. Amanda leaned against me, still shaking. It's over, I said quietly. Susan's plan worked. She saved us. Amanda looked up at me, her eyes full of tears and something that might have been hope. Can I come home, Dad? I pulled my daughter close. You're already home. The forensic report came back 3 days after the arrests. Detective Martinez called while I was sitting in my living room, my actual living room officially restored to me by emergency court order. Thomas, Martinez said. We have confirmation. Digitalis glycosides in Susan's tissue samples. Concentrated levels consistent with acute poisoning, not therapeutic use. I closed my eyes. Part of me had hoped we were wrong, that somehow Susan had died naturally. But no, Kenneth had murdered my wife. How much? I asked. Enough to cause cardiac arrest in someone with pre-existing heart disease. The medical examiner said it would have looked exactly like natural heart failure. Without those videos. She trailed off. Your wife was brilliant, Thomas. She saved her own case. The official charges came down the next day. Kenneth Hutchinson, conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, fraud, extortion. Trevor Hutchinson, conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, fraud, extortion. Donna Hutchinson, accessory. After the fact, elder abuse, fraud. The prosecution offered Donna a deal almost immediately. 3 years probation and full testimony against Kenneth and Trevor. Her lawyer took it within hours. She's going to testify, Amanda asked when I told her. We were at the kitchen table, the same table where Susan had tried to reach Amanda during their last lunch. She doesn't have much choice. Either cooperate or face 20 years as an accessory to murder. Amanda stared at her coffee. She knew. In the video, she asked if it could be traced. She knew what Kenneth was planning. Yes. And she let it happen anyway. Amanda's voice was hollow. She let him kill Mom. For money. Christopher put his hand over his sister's. That's why she's going to prison. Even with the deal, she'll have a record. She'll lose everything. It's not enough, Amanda whispered. It wasn't. but it was something. Howard Klein filed for Amanda's divorce 2 weeks after the arrests. Trevor tried to contest it from jail, but his public defender advised him to sign. The marriage was dissolved in 48 hours. "You're free," Howard told Amanda. "Legally, financially, completely free. Trevor has no claim to anything, and given his criminal charges, you won't owe him anything." Amanda stared at the divorce decree like she couldn't believe it was real. "I thought I'd be married to him forever. I thought I was trapped." "You were," I said gently. "But not anymore." She moved back into her childhood bedroom the same day. Christopher helped her pack from the Highlands Ranch house, mostly clothes and photos from before the marriage. Everything else she left behind. "I don't want any of it," she told us. "It's all tainted." That first week home was hard. Amanda barely spoke. She'd sit in her room for hours or wander the house like a ghost. She wouldn't eat unless we put food in front of her. She jumped at every sound. "She's traumatized," Christopher said quietly. 6 years of manipulation. 2 months thinking she'd betrayed you. Finding out they murdered Mom. That's not something you bounce back from. She needs therapy. She needs time and us. So we gave her both. I made breakfast every morning, scrambled eggs and wheat toast like Susan used to make. Christopher sat with her in the evenings, just being present. We didn't push. We just let her exist. Slowly, she started to come back. 2 weeks after moving home, Amanda asked if she could help in Susan's garden. We spent the afternoon pulling weeds and planting herbs, basil, rosemary, thyme. "Mom taught me to garden," Amanda said quietly, hands in the dirt. "When I was little, she said plants need the right environment to grow. Good soil, enough light protection from things that want to hurt them." She was right. I had bad soil. Amanda's voice broke. Kenneth and Trevor were like poison in the roots. I couldn't grow. I couldn't breathe. I pulled Amanda into a hug. She cried into my shoulder, and I held her like I'd wanted to for 6 years. "You're home now," I whispered. "You're in good soil again." Detective Martinez visited regularly to prepare Amanda for testimony. The prosecutor wanted her statement on record, every threat, every manipulation, every moment of coercion. "It started small," Amanda explained during one interview. "Trevor would get upset if I talked to you too much. Said I was choosing you over him. Then Kenneth started offering advice about money, about how you should manage the house. They made it sound helpful." "When did it change?" the prosecutor asked. "After Mom got sick. Kenneth was at the house all the time. He kept talking about end-of-life care costs, protecting assets, how the house would be too much for Dad alone." Amanda's hands shook. "Then Mom died, and Kenneth said it was time to make the transition. That Dad would be better off somewhere smaller." "Did you want to evict your father?" "No." Amanda's voice was fierce. "Never. But Kenneth said if I didn't cooperate, Trevor would lose everything. That we'd all go to prison because Trevor had co-signed Kenneth's debts. I was terrified." The prosecutor made notes. "You'll testify to this in court. Are you prepared?" Amanda looked at me. I nodded. "Yes," she said. "Kenneth murdered my mother. He manipulated me into betraying my father. He needs to pay." The trial was set for September, 3 months away. Kenneth's lawyers tried to get the videos thrown out, but Howard Klein had made sure everything was legal. Susan's cameras in Susan's house. All airtight. By August, Kenneth's defense was already talking plea deals. The prosecution said no. This was going to trial. One evening after another DA meeting, we sat on the back porch watching the sunset over the Rockies. The same view Susan had loved. "When's the trial?" Amanda asked. "September 15th. 3 weeks." Will I have to see him, Kenneth? Yes, but he'll be in handcuffs. He can't hurt you anymore. Amanda was quiet. Then, good. I want to look him in the eye when they convict him. I want him to see he didn't win. That Mom's plan worked. Christopher raised his beer. To Mom, the smartest, bravest person I've ever known. Amanda raised her water. To Mom. I raised mine. To Susan, who saved us all. We sat in silence as the sun set, three people slowly healing, bound by love and loss, and the extraordinary woman who'd refused to let evil win. The trial was set for September, but the real trial had already happened in my living room on Susan's cameras. Justice was just a formality now. Amanda's old bedroom looked exactly the way Susan had left it. The same pale blue walls Amanda had picked when she was 16. The same bookshelf full of college textbooks and childhood favorites. The same quilt Susan had made with little purple flowers stitched into every square. Amanda stood in the doorway that first night home, staring at the room like she'd traveled back in time. I haven't been in here in 6 years, she whispered. Your mother kept it ready, I said. Just in case you ever needed to come home. Amanda's face crumpled, but she didn't cry. She'd cried so much already. Instead, she walked in, slowly touching the bookshelf, the desk, the quilt. Remembering who she used to be, the therapist appointment started the following week. Dr. Sarah Brown specialized in domestic abuse and trauma. After the first session, Amanda came home exhausted and went straight to her room. After the second session, she actually spoke at dinner. After the third, she smiled just a little, but it was there. Dr. Brown says what happened to me has a name, Amanda told us one evening. Coercive control. It's when someone uses manipulation and threats to dominate you. Takes away your autonomy little by little until you don't even recognize yourself anymore. That's exactly what Kenneth did, Christopher said. And Trevor. Amanda's voice was quiet. I loved him once. Or I thought I did. But looking back, I don't think I ever really knew him. He was always playing a role. The perfect husband. And I was so busy trying to be the perfect wife that I didn't see the cage he was building around me. You see it now, I said. That's what matters. Amanda nodded slowly. Dr. Brown asked me to write down memories from before Trevor, before the Hutchinsons. She said I need to remember who I was so I can figure out who I want to be. That night, I found Amanda sitting in Susan's garden, the same spot where we'd planted herbs together. She was holding something, a small journal with a purple cover. Mom gave me this when I graduated college, Amanda said when she saw me. She wrote on the first page, for my brilliant daughter. May you always know your own worth. I'd forgotten I even had it. I sat down beside her on the bench Susan and I had built 20 years ago. I found something today, Amanda continued. In my old desk, a photo. She showed me. It was Amanda at maybe 8 years old, covered in dirt, holding a tomato plant. Susan was kneeling beside her, laughing. I remember that day, I said. Your mother spent the whole spring teaching you to garden. You were so proud when that first tomato came in. She told me plants were like people. They need good soil, sunlight, water, and patience. Amanda traced the photo with her finger, and she said the most important thing a plant needs is someone who believes it can grow, someone who protects it from things that want to hurt it. Your mother was a very wise woman. She tried to protect me. Amanda's voice broke. At that last lunch, she knew something was wrong. She asked if I was happy, if I needed help, and I was too scared to tell her the truth. She understood. The videos, Amanda, she knew you were trapped. That's why she left instructions to protect you. That's why her last words to me were, especially Amanda. Amanda cried then, but these tears were different. Not the desperate, guilty sobs from before. These were grief, pure and clean. "I miss her so much," Amanda whispered. "Me too." We sat in the garden until the sun set, two people mourning the woman who'd saved them both. Christopher was Amanda's constant shadow those first few weeks. He'd take time off from his teaching job to drive her to therapy appointments. He'd sit with her when the nightmares came. She'd wake up screaming, thinking she was back in that house with Kenneth. He'd remind her to eat, to shower, to step outside. "You don't have to do this," Amanda told him one morning. "I'm okay. You should go back to Boulder, back to your students." "I'm exactly where I need to be," Christopher said firmly. "You're my sister. You'd do the same for me." "I don't know if I would have. Before all this, I mean. I was so wrapped up in Trevor's world that I barely talked to you." "That wasn't you. That was the cage they built." Christopher put his arm around her shoulders. "But you're out now, and we're going to help you remember who you really are." By late August, Amanda was sleeping through most nights. She'd started eating regularly. She'd even laughed at one of Christopher's terrible jokes. Small steps, but they were steps forward. One evening, I decided to cook dinner. Really cook, not just heat up something from Martin's wife Sarah, who'd been bringing us meals. I made Susan's recipe for chicken parmesan, the one she'd perfected over 20 years. Amanda came downstairs when she smelled the garlic. "Is that your mother's chicken parmesan?" I found the recipe card in her kitchen drawer. Amanda's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. "She only made that for special occasions." This is a special occasion. Our first real family dinner in 2 years. We sat at the table, me, Christopher, and Amanda. 3 empty spaces where Susan should have been, where Trevor had once sat, where the future was uncertain. But we were together. "This tastes exactly like Mom's," Amanda said softly. "Your father's been practicing," Christopher said with a grin. "He burned 3 pans before he got it right." Amanda actually laughed. A real laugh. The sound filled the kitchen like music. Halfway through the meal, Amanda put down her fork. "I don't deserve this. After what I did, kicking you out, taking the house." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Amanda, stop. You were manipulated. You were threatened. You were a victim." "But." "No buts." I squeezed her hand. "Your mother left you something too. She left you a second chance. A chance to heal, to rebuild, to become who you were always meant to be. Don't waste it." Amanda stared at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Okay." That night after dinner, Amanda opened her laptop. Dr. Brown had suggested she start journaling, writing down her thoughts, her memories, her journey back to herself. Amanda stared at the blank page for a long time. Then her fingers moved across the keyboard. "My mother saved my life twice. Once when she gave birth to me, and once when she died." She kept writing, and for the first time in 6 years, Amanda Gardner knew exactly who she was. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Every day, Christopher, Amanda, and I sat in the courtroom and watched Kenneth Hutchinson's empire of lies crumble. The prosecution presented all 47 videos. They called forensic experts who confirmed the digitalis poisoning. They brought in financial analysts who detailed Kenneth's $2.8 million debt. They showed the jury how a desperate man had murdered a sick woman to steal her house. Kenneth's lawyers tried everything. They claimed the videos were doctored until 3 independent forensic analysts confirmed they were authentic. They claimed Susan had given Kenneth permission to be in the house until Howard Klein presented the trust documents, proving she'd specifically protected the property from him. They claimed Kenneth's searches for untraceable heart attack methods were innocent research until the jury watched him discuss digitalis poisoning with Trevor and Donna the night Susan died. There was no defense, just a guilty man watching his sins projected on a courtroom screen. Amanda testified on day 8. I'd been worried about her, whether she could face Kenneth again, whether she'd be able to speak. But when the prosecutor called her name, Amanda stood up and walked to the witness stand with her head high. She wore a simple blue dress, no jewelry, no makeup. She looked young and fragile, but her voice was steady. "Mrs. Hutchinson," the prosecutor began, "I know this is difficult, but I need you to tell the jury about your relationship with the defendant, Kenneth Hutchinson." "He was my father-in-law," Amanda said. "I married his son Trevor 6 years ago." "And during that marriage, how would you describe Kenneth's behavior toward you?" Amanda took a breath. "Controlling. Manipulative. He isolated me from my family. He made every decision about my life, where I worked, who I saw, how I spent money. And when my mother got sick, he used my fear to force me to betray my father." She told them everything. The threats about Trevor's business failing, the warnings about fraud charges, the way Kenneth had boxed her in until she felt she had no choice but to participate in stealing my house. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the jury box. Kenneth's lawyer tried to discredit her on cross-examination. "Mrs. Hutchinson, isn't it true you signed the eviction paperwork willingly?" "I signed it because your client told me my husband would go to prison if I didn't," Amanda shot back. "That's not willing. That's coercion." "But you never told anyone you were being threatened." "Because I was terrified. Kenneth Hutchinson murdered my mother. I didn't know that at the time, but I knew he was dangerous. I knew he'd destroy anyone who got in his way." Amanda's voice was steel. "And he did. He destroyed my marriage. He destroyed my relationship with my father. He destroyed my mother. The only thing he didn't destroy was the truth, because my mother was smarter than him." The courtroom erupted in applause. The judge had to bang his gavel to restore order. Amanda walked back to her seat with her head high. Christopher and I stood up to meet her. She collapsed into our arms, shaking, but she'd done it. Trevor testified too, trying to save himself. He claimed he'd been manipulated by his father, that he hadn't known about the digitalis, that he'd thought they were just helping Susan transition her assets. The jury didn't believe him. The videos showed Trevor actively participating in every step, coaching Amanda on what to say, discussing the profit split, threatening to divorce her if she didn't cooperate. Donna took the stand as part of her plea deal. She cried through the whole testimony, claiming she'd thought Kenneth was joking about the old lady comments, that she hadn't realized he was serious until it was too late. The prosecutor tore her apart. "You were present the night Susan Gardner died. You heard Kenneth discuss digitalis poisoning. You heard him say, 'Plan B worked,' and you did nothing. I was afraid you were complicit." The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the forewoman stood and read the verdict. In the case of the people versus Kenneth Hutchinson, on the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. Kenneth's face went white. On the charge of elder abuse, guilty. On the charge of fraud, guilty. On the charge of extortion, guilty. Trevor received the same verdicts. Donna had already pleaded out, so she wasn't present. Sentencing came 3 weeks later on September 28, 2024. The judge asked if the victim's family wanted to make a statement. I stood up, my hands shaking, holding a piece of paper covered in Susan's handwriting, a letter I'd found in the storage unit, one she'd written to be read if anything happened to her. "Your Honor," I began. "My wife, Susan Gardner, was a librarian. She spent 35 years helping people find answers. She believed in knowledge and truth, in the power of evidence. And when she realized someone was planning to hurt her family, she used those beliefs to protect us. I looked at Kenneth. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Susan spent her last months installing cameras, gathering evidence, and setting up legal protections. She did this while dying, while her heart was failing, while Kenneth Hutchinson was researching ways to kill her. She knew she probably wouldn't survive, but she made sure we would. My voice broke. My wife loved her family more than anything. She loved our children. She loved our home. She loved the life we built together. And Kenneth Hutchinson took her from us, not because he hated her, but because he wanted money. He murdered a dying woman for $850,000. I held up Susan's letter. She wrote this before she died. She said, "If something happens to me, don't let them win. Don't let evil triumph. Fight for the truth. Your Honor, I'm asking you to honor my wife's courage, to give these men the maximum sentence, to make sure they never hurt another family." I sat down. Christopher gripped my shoulder. Amanda was crying silently. The judge looked at Kenneth for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Kenneth Hutchinson, you have been convicted of conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse fraud, and extortion. These crimes represent a calculated, cold-blooded betrayal of family and basic human decency. I hereby sentence you to 35 years in the Colorado Department of Corrections with no possibility of parole for 25 years. Kenneth's head dropped. "Trevor Hutchinson, you are sentenced to 18 years with no possibility of parole for 12 years. It was over. We walked out of the courthouse into bright September sunshine. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, but I didn't care. Amanda stopped on the courthouse steps and looked up at the sky. "Mom saved us all, didn't she?" she said softly. I put my arm around her shoulders. She did. Now we honor her, June 2026. 2 years to the day after the party that changed everything. I stood in front of a renovated community center in downtown Denver, looking up at the sign Susan Gardner Foundation for Financial Abuse Survivors. Bronze letters catching the morning sun. Beneath Susan's name, "Truth is a slow healer, but it always heals." "Dad." Amanda appeared beside me in a professional suit carrying opening day materials. "Ribbon cutting starts in 10 minutes. Ready?" I looked at my daughter. 2 years of therapy, 2 years of healing, 2 years of rebuilding herself from the ground up. She'd recertified as a forensic accountant specializing in abuse cases. She'd testified at 3 other elder abuse trials. She'd transformed trauma into purpose. "I'm ready," I said. "Are you?" Amanda smiled. A real smile, the kind I hadn't seen since before Trevor. Mom would be proud, wouldn't she? Incredibly proud. Inside the main room was packed. Howard Klein serving as legal counsel pro bono. Martin and Sarah Cooper from Lakewood. Detective Martinez in uniform with officers from Susan's case. Christopher near the front, he'd become education director running summer workshops on recognizing financial abuse. And survivors. Dozens of them. People who'd escaped family members trying to steal homes, savings autonomy, all with stories like ours. At 10 a.m., Amanda stepped to the podium. "Good morning, I'm Amanda Gardner, Executive Director. 2 years ago, I stood in my father's living room and watched videos my mother recorded knowing she was about to be murdered. Videos that exposed a conspiracy to steal her home and destroy her family. Silence. My mother couldn't save herself, but she saved us. Today we open this foundation to help other families fight back." Amanda outlined services, free legal consultation, temporary housing, financial planning, and a 24-hour hotline. 1-800-677-1116, displayed on banners throughout the room. If you're being threatened, manipulated, or coerced by family, You don't have to fight alone. We're here. We understand. We'll help you find your way home." When Amanda finished, she introduced me. I walked to the podium with Susan's photo beside me. "My wife knew she was dying," I began. "Her heart was failing. She had maybe months left. Most people would focus on saying goodbye. Susan did something different. She installed cameras, she gathered evidence, she set up legal protections. She built a case against the people trying to destroy her family." I looked around the room. She did this because she refused to let evil win. She refused to let her family become victims. And she left us a mission to make sure no one fights these battles alone. My voice broke. This foundation is Susan's final gift, not just to our family, but to every family facing what we faced. Today we open these doors in her name, and we promise to fight for every person who walks through them. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, people lined up to talk to Amanda. One woman, maybe 70, frail and nervous, waited until everyone else had left. "My son wants to put me in a nursing home and sell my house," she said quietly. "He says I'm too old to live alone. But I don't want to leave. It's my home." Amanda took the woman's hands. "What's your name?" "Eleanor." "Eleanor, you're not alone anymore. We're going to help you." Amanda's eyes were fierce, the same look Susan used to get. "You're not alone anymore." Eleanor started to cry. Amanda pulled her into a hug while Christopher brought paperwork. I watched my daughter, Susan's daughter, begin the work her mother had started. The fight wasn't over. It would never be over. But now, because of Susan, no one had to fight alone. The cemetery was quiet on Sunday mornings. I'd learned that over the past 2 years, early Sunday was the best time to visit Susan. No crowds, no noise, just wind through the pine trees and the distant Rockies. I brought fresh flowers, sunflowers, her favorite, the same kind she used to plant in our garden every spring. Susan's headstone was simple gray granite with her name dates and the words we'd chosen together years ago: beloved wife, mother, friend. She loved fiercely and protected fearlessly. I knelt and placed the flowers in the vase, clearing away last week's wilted stems. "Hi, sweetheart," I said quietly. "Sorry I missed last Sunday. The foundation's grand opening was hectic, but it was beautiful, Susan. Amanda was incredible. You should have seen her, so strong, so confident. Everything you hoped she'd be." I sat on the grass beside her grave, my old knees protesting. 2 years since she died. 2 years since I'd held her hand. 2 years since I'd heard her voice. But somehow she was still here, in the foundation, in Amanda's determination to help others, in Christopher's gentle strength, in the videos that had saved us all. "I've been thinking about the cameras," I continued. "At first I thought they were just evidence, but they were more than that, weren't they? They were your love letter, your way of protecting us even after you were gone." The wind picked up rustling leaves overhead. "You could have told me, asked for help. But you knew I would have confronted Kenneth immediately, probably made everything worse. So you did it alone. You bore that terrible knowledge that someone was planning to kill you, and you used it to save us." My voice cracked. "That's the bravest thing I've ever known." Footsteps behind me. Amanda appeared carrying purple irises, Susan's second favorite. "I thought I'd find you here," she said softly. She knelt beside me, placing her flowers next to mine. "Hi, Mom." We sat in silence. Then Amanda spoke, voice thick with tears. "I'm sorry it took me so long to understand. Sorry I let them control me. Sorry I didn't ask for help sooner." She touched the headstone gently. "But I'm trying to make it right. The foundation the survivors were helping, it's all because of you. Because you showed me what real strength looks like. I put my arm around Amanda. She leaned into me and we cried together. Not desperate, guilty tears. These were tears of gratitude, of healing, of love. She forgave you, I said, before she even died. She understood you were trapped. I know. I watched that video, the one where she talked to the camera. She said I was still her daughter, that I was just lost. Amanda wiped her eyes. I'm not lost anymore, Mom. I found my way home. More footsteps. Christopher joined us, carrying coffee for all three of us. Thought you might need this, he said, handing us cups. He sat on Amanda's other side, completing the circle. Family meeting at Mom's grave, Christopher said with a small smile. She'd like this. She would, I agreed. We sat together as the sun climbed higher, three people bound by love and loss and the extraordinary woman who'd refused to let death end her protection. The cameras weren't just about catching Kenneth, Christopher said. They were about showing us the truth, about Amanda being a victim, about how love works, it protects even from beyond. Mom's final lesson, Amanda whispered. I reached out and touched the headstone, feeling sun-warmed granite under my palm. You're still protecting us, aren't you? I said softly. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine and flowers. The trees swayed. A bird sang overhead. I smiled through my tears. Thank you, my love, for everything. Amanda and Christopher put their hands on the stone beside mine. Thank you, Mom, they said together. We stayed until noon, talking to Susan, talking to each other, healing in the quiet peace of her presence. Susan Waverly Gardner, my wife, their mother, our hero, gone but never truly absent. If you're reading this, then you've walked with me through the darkest chapter of my life. You've seen how my wife was murdered, how my daughter was manipulated, how a desperate man nearly destroyed my family for money. I need to tell you something important. This happens every day. Elder abuse is an epidemic. According to the National Center on Elder Abuse, 1 in 10 older adults experiences some form of abuse, financial, emotional, physical, or neglect. But most cases are never reported. Most victims suffer in silence, afraid to speak up against their own family. Susan could have been one of those silent victims. Kenneth could have poisoned her, stolen our house, and disappeared into his comfortable life while I died alone, never knowing what really happened. But Susan refused to be silent. Even facing death, even terrified, she fought back. With the only weapons she had: cameras, documents, and truth. I'm sharing our story because I want you to recognize the warning signs. The signs Susan saw, but I missed. Financial control. When adult children suddenly take over an elder's finances without consent. When bank accounts are drained. When property titles mysteriously change hands. Isolation. When family members cut off an elder's contact with friends or other relatives. When visits are monitored. When the elder seems afraid to speak freely. Sudden changes to legal documents. New wills or trusts created when the elder is sick, confused, or under pressure. Especially if they never mentioned wanting changes. Threats and manipulation. Using fear, guilt, or intimidation to control decisions. Threatening nursing homes. Claiming incompetence. Making them feel like burdens. Coercion of other family members. Like what happened to Amanda, forcing one family member to participate through threats. If you see these signs, please act. Call the National Elder Abuse Hotline at 1-800-677-1116. Contact Adult Protective Services. Talk to an elder law attorney. Document everything: dates, conversations, transactions. And if you're the one being abused, you are not alone. You are not a burden. You have rights. Your home, your money, your life, they belong to you. not to family members who see you as an ATM. The Susan Gardner Foundation exists to carry on that mission. We provide free legal help, financial counseling, safe housing, and support to elders facing family exploitation. We've helped hundreds since we opened. People like Eleanor, whose son tried to force her into a nursing home. Like Robert, whose daughter emptied his accounts. Like Maria, whose grandson forged her signature. Every person we help is a victory. Every family we save is Susan's legacy continuing. Amanda runs the foundation now with Christopher's help. My daughter transformed her trauma into purpose. My son turned his teacher's heart toward education about abuse. And I tell our story, over and over, to anyone who'll listen. Because Susan's cameras didn't just save our family. They gave us a mission, to make sure no one fights alone, to shine light into dark corners where abuse hides, to prove that truth, no matter how long it takes, always wins. Because love, real love, doesn't end with death. It becomes something greater. It becomes justice, protection, a foundation that helps thousands. It becomes eternal. Thank you, Susan, for everything. And thank you, reader, for witnessing our story. If it helps even one person recognize abuse, report it, or escape it, then Susan's sacrifice meant something beyond our family. Her camera is still recording, still protecting, still saving lives. Looking back, I realize my biggest mistake wasn't trusting the wrong people. It was ignoring the right one. Susan tried to warn me about Kenneth for years. I dismissed her concerns as paranoia. I chose comfort over vigilance. Don't be like me. When someone you love sees danger, listen. When your gut tells you something's wrong, investigate. When family members suddenly change, ask why. I wasted 6 years telling myself Amanda was just busy, just stressed, just adjusting to married life. The truth was, she was drowning, and I was too blind to see it. God gives us instincts for a reason. Susan's instincts saved our family. She trusted that still small voice that warned her Kenneth was dangerous, and she acted on it even when I wouldn't listen. The Bible says, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for those he can devour." Kenneth prowled, but God gave Susan the wisdom to set a trap. I've learned that evil doesn't always announce itself. It comes wearing a smile, offering help, calling itself family. And sometimes God's protection comes in unexpected forms, like hidden cameras and cloud storage. He works through our preparation, our courage, our refusal to give up, even when death is certain. My advice: document everything. Trust your instincts. Protect your loved ones legally while you still can. And remember, God sees what happens in the dark. Truth always comes to light, even if it takes cameras hidden in picture frames to reveal it. Susan's faith sustained her through her darkest hours. She believed God would vindicate the righteous. And He did. I appreciate you staying with us through this journey. Drop a 2 in the comments if this story resonated with you. A gentle reminder, this narrative contains fictional elements crafted for awareness and education. If the themes don't align with what you're seeking, feel free to explore other content that speaks to your heart. But if this moved, you please share it. You might save someone's life.